After we saw widespread heavy snow and record cold for the eastern half of the United States to begin our work week, we are watching a change in our weather pattern that is warming us up over most of the United States. And will that pattern last into the coming weekend? Let's dive right into our forecast and give you the information that you need to know here at the Weather Farm. As we begin our Wednesday, we are watching still showers and snow showers with those northwesterly winds across the Great Lakes into the northeast. This northwest flow is going to continue as we go Wednesday into Thursday, as that low pressure that's way up there in far eastern Quebec, it continues to move away from the United States and takes with it that snow and core of the cold air. Across parts of Florida, where you saw numerous record lows broken earlier this week, you are warming with high pressure building in. And out across the Rockies, we are watching yet high pressure build in across the parts there, though we can see some scattered showers to begin our Wednesday across parts of northern Idaho into far western Montana. As we get to Thursday, though, that pattern does change. We start to see these southwesterly winds with that clockwise rotation around the high pressure, bringing warmer temperatures to the Central Plains and to the Ohio Valley. We still have that northwesterly flow across the far northeast, continuing to bring snow showers to those favorite areas for that lake effect snow. But out west, we watch an area of low pressure from the Gulf of Alaska towards California. It is bringing heavy rain to northern California and to northern Washington state as we begin our Thursday. But across parts of British Columbia, we're watching heavy snowfall, especially in those higher elevations. And that snowfall will accumulate significantly across British Columbia for our Thursday. As we go to our Friday, there's that low pressure off the coast of California. We watch a line of storms from central California down through the Los Angeles area. High pressure across the Rockies, high pressure across the east. And again, we're getting that warmer temperature. So where your nighttime lows were here in the 20s and 30s, to start our week, we're now in the 40s and 50s for our nighttime lows. Across parts of central Saskatchewan, that low pressure continues to intensify. And on the north side of it, where we have that much colder air, we're seeing significant snow beginning to pile up, which is a good sign because we need to build that snowpack across parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan as we get towards December and that colder air moves into the lower 48. A deep snowpack across those two provinces will help maintain the core of that cold as it moves into the central United States, and we will talk more about that later in this video. And as we get to our Saturday, that low pressure continues to intensify just west of Hudson Bay, bringing rain and snow across parts of northwestern Ontario. Across the southeast, it's high pressure in control, warm temperatures. Great time to get outside, enjoy nature this upcoming weekend. But across parts of Southern California, we are talking heavy rainfall. And in fact, that rainfall could be significant and cause localized flash flooding and mudslides in certain areas. So this is something we're definitely going to be watching over the next 48 hours. And still across the Pacific Northwest, we watch more rainfall for the state of Washington and snow across the higher elevations of British Columbia. And what's causing this is we see that jet stream, which has been dipped across the eastern half of the United States. It begins to retreat into the northeast. That's allowing a ridge to build across the Central Plains and expand towards the east as we get to our Thursday and Friday. And there's that deep trough off the coast of California with that low pressure system. It's going to move onshore Friday into Saturday. We're going to see that warmth continue to build across the Central Plains. We're going to watch a weak trough move across the northern tier and reinforce the colder air, mainly for the northeast as we end our weekend. But that trough will come out into the Four Corners region, and we will impact our weather across the Central Plains as we begin our next week. So let's put all of our maps into motion. It is quiet across most of the United States with the exception of those snow showers with those lake effect systems. Out west, we are watching the rainfall move onshore Thursday into Friday. Heavy rainfall, and we're talking several inches of rain could fall. As we get into the Sierras of California, we're talking heavy snowfall. And snowfall across the Canadian provinces, just helping to lay down that snowpack that we're going to need as we get to the later part of winter. In terms of our temperatures for our Wednesday, temperatures are generally going to be seasonal across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, down through the Tennessee valleys, 40s to the north, 50s central, 60s through parts of Tennessee. Where Nashville, you saw snowfall earlier this week. 80s are going to be kept down through Texas and into far southern Florida as well. Across the northeast, we're still cool, 30s and 40s for your afternoon highs. And out west, temperatures are in the 50s and 60s for your Wednesday. As we go into our Thursday, we still are warming up here across the Ohio Valley, now more 50s and 60s, but we really start to see that warmth building to the north. 80s through Texas, 70s all the way up into far southern South Dakota for your Thursday. And out across parts of California, temperatures are being held down with that rainfall as it moves onshore. Temperatures there in the 50s and 60s. And as we go to our Friday, we could be talking near 80 and low 80s across parts of eastern Nebraska for your afternoon highs. 60s well into the southern Canadian provinces. But where that deep low pressure is moving through central Saskatchewan, on the north side of it, where we see that heavy snow, temperatures are 20s and 30s. But we could even start to see some 90s in the far southern parts of Texas as well for our Friday. And it's nice weather to get out, play a round of golf anywhere from Mississippi through the Carolinas up into parts of Virginia. But as we go through the weekend, we're going to watch that system move out of California, bring snow to the Rockies, but then it's going to eject into the Central Plains. It's going to try to get organized, but it's really going to not have any steering mechanism or any forcing. It's really going to allow severe weather. We're mainly going to see rainfall through the lower Ohio and Tennessee valleys, but as it moves towards the East Coast, we could see it develop some snow if we could get enough cold air in place as it moves towards the East Coast. By Monday and Tuesday, we could see snow across parts of Pennsylvania. But after this system moves out, we then watch for yet another system to impact central and southern California. And as this one sits and spins for a little while, as we get towards Tuesday of next week, this is the one that we're going to watch as it ejects out of the Four Corners region by our Wednesday. Where it goes, and this one has the potential to develop into a severe weather complex as we get toward the end of next week. So that's still 10 to 12 days away from now. A lot can definitely change, and a lot will change, especially the path, the location of the heavy storms, things like that. But it is something that it is that second storm by the middle of next work week that we are watching for a change in our overall weather pattern. And speaking of our overall weather pattern and the changes, look at here. We're talking 70s through Illinois and Indiana, where you saw a few inches of snow earlier this week. So all that snow is going to be melting here across the Ohio Valley. 50s and 60s across the northern tier out through California. With that rainfall, you'll be kept down in the 60s for your afternoon highs, but that warmth is extending up through Oklahoma, even down to parts of near Orlando, where you could be near 80 degrees for your Saturday. And as we go into our Sunday, it's more of the same. We start to see a cooling pattern across the northern tier of the United States, with temperatures falling into the 30s and 40s across northern Minnesota and North Dakota, even into eastern Montana. And that cooler air continues to sink south into the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, 40s and 50s for your highs on your Monday, 30s across the Northeast. But look to the north, where that heavy snow fell with that first system that moved across. Temperatures are being held down into the teens and 20s for your afternoon highs. And as we watch into our Tuesday, where we see that snow potentially falling here across central Pennsylvania, temperatures could be held down into the 30s and 40s if enough cold air sinks in behind that trough that will be digging to the northeast by our Tuesday. In terms of our precipitation, it's going to be far and few between for most of the United States. The exception being the Northeast, and primarily a lot of this is going to be that lake effect snow in those favored snow belts off of the lakes, where we could see 8 to 12 inches of snow over the next 2 to 3 days. But out west across California into Washington State and into British Columbia, that's where we're going to see the heaviest amounts of rainfall, with rainfall amounts totaling 2 to 4 inches of rain by the time we get to our Monday morning. So let's look a little bit closer here. As we get towards Los Angeles and Southern California, we're going to have widespread 2 to 4 inches of rain. We can see some isolated pockets of 4 to 6 inches of rain, especially as we get closer down towards Baja, even out toward the deserts. We could see a half an inch of rain by our Monday morning. And as we make our way into Arizona, we could see up to an inch of rain for places in central Arizona, even towards Las Vegas. You could see an inch of rain by our Monday. But as we make our way north through California, up north of San Francisco, widespread 2 to 3 inches of rain is likely. And across the Pacific Northwest, it's mainly the northwest part of Washington State where we will see that heavy rain, as well as up towards north central Washington, where we could see 3 to 5 inches of rain. The heaviest amounts across parts of British Columbia, and that's going to fall mainly in the term of snow in those highest elevations where we could see several feet piling up. We could even see some snow across the mountainous regions of Alberta into northern Idaho and western Montana, as we could see liquid equivalents of up to 1 inch of rain. And as I mentioned, across the Northeast, we're mainly going to see it in those favored snowbelt regions with that heavy snow of 8 to 12 inches. But elsewhere, we could see lighter amounts of showers and rain accumulating to about a half of an inch by our Monday. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about is I talked about a pattern change. This is Greenland here, and we've seen that high pressure blocking the pattern over Greenland. And what's that allowed it to do is to send colder than normal temperatures into the eastern half of the United States. So this is this week's map. As we move into next week, here's Greenland. That core of that high is going to move to the south end of Greenland. And what's that going to do is it's going to then push warmer temperatures into the eastern half of the United States and push that colder air into the southwest. And that's why we're going to see that unsettled pattern across parts of California through the Four Corners region as we get towards the start and middle of next week. And where those two temperature contrasts meet here across the Central Plain, that's why we think that by next week we could see the potential for severe weather across the Central Plain. And as we get towards the last few days of November, we see an area of low pressure centered across parts of Greenland. That's going to push near normal temperatures across the eastern half of the United States, but it's going to continue to regress that area of high pressure, that ridging, up into the Gulf of Alaska, into the northern Pacific. As those two ridges continue to build here in the Gulf of Alaska and the northern Pacific, As we go into the first few days of December, what it's going to do is it's going to allow more colder air to spill across the Canadian provinces. And if we get that snowpack in place, as that cold air moves over the Canadian province, it's going to be able to maintain its cold nature and spill into the central plain, eastern parts of the United States as we begin the month of December. Now, this is still a long way off and a lot can change, but there are signs that the pattern will be changing as we enter the month of December. Another map that tells us this shows us the reds and oranges show us areas of above normal temperatures, whereas the blues show us areas of below normal temperatures. And the more intense the color, the greater the magnitude of the difference from normal. And so I'm going to wait for this map to reset. And so what this does is it goes week by week. It shows the weekly average. So this is this week. Cold in the east, warm in the west. The warm moves as we close out November. But as we get into December, we start to see, there's the timestamp up in the upper left there. For most of December, the model is starting to trend that the United States, the lower 48, could be below normal for a good portion or most of December on average. Not to say there won't be warm days, won't say there won't be bitterly cold days, but on average, the lower 48 is expected to be below normal in temperature for the month of December. Now, how will that impact with our precipitation track and our jet stream? Will that bring more storms and snowstorms to the Central Plains, the Ohio Valley, the Southeast, the North? All that still be determined. But we're starting to see signs of an overall pattern change for the lower 48. We're going to see warm temperatures across Alaska and western British Columbia and Yukon, and potentially colder temperatures across the lower 48 potentially for the month of December. And again, this is still 6 weeks out. A lot can change, but we're going to continue to monitor and bring you the latest at the weather farm. The other big story is we are under a severe solar storm right now that's produced the Aurora Borealis, or the northern lights, very far south into the lower 48. So the further northern you are, you're more likely to be able to see them with the naked eye. But if you can get out there and get camera photos, you're going to get images just like this one that was sent to us from a viewer from Southwest Indiana here at the weather farm. And just look at those brilliant pinks and reds and things on the horizon. You want to look toward the northwest sky. You want to get away from the lights of the city to have the best chance to capture images just like this. So thank you for sending this photo in. And if you have pictures, share them down in the comments of this video. We'd love to see them. Well, that wraps us up for today, for your Wednesday. We hope you have a wonderful day. Again, drop those photos down in the comments section of the Aurora Borealis. What are the conditions that you're seeing in your area? What are the temperatures? Are you seeing rain? Are you seeing warm temperatures after a freeze earlier this week? Let us know. We hope you have a great day, and we will see you soon.